now. And I said, instead of being a meeting retreat group, we need to be active, doing active things. And I think a very, very important issue for us to lead on now is racism. Because for years the other side has tried to paint us as the racists. I don't know about all you, you're all individuals, but I'm not a racist. The way I look at it is, you have no choice what color your skin is when you are born or what your ethnicity is. Racism is stupid. So I oppose racism, but I look at it at three different levels. You have individual racism, the person who says, okay, I'm white, you're Asian, I don't want you into my store. That's bad, I agree. Okay, we should fight against that. But should that person have the right to decide who should be in their store or not, or whether or not they have to make the Nazi wedding cake because they have a public business? A good issue. But that's one level. Then you have a higher level of racism called institutional racism, where the college says, okay, we need to have so many Asians, so many blacks, so many Warrenites, so therefore we're going to have a quota system, and somebody who should be allowed to go to that school is denied because of the color of their skin. Or what happened in Boston in the 1970s, where children were bused from Boston to Wellesley or Wellesley to Boston because of the color of their skin. So I think we need to fight back on that. Our federal census is racist because it asks you to put down, or tells you maybe, what your race is. When you apply for a background check to buy a firearm, right here on the form that you have to fill out under penalty of perjury, it gives you choices to make that you have to make about what your race is, or you can't buy the firearm. Used to be that they had choices and then a line for others. They don't have that anymore. They changed it a few years ago because too many of us were putting down human, American, or GFY. So they now have another leg, and you have to... Good for you? You have to fill that out and choose one or more of them under penalty of perjury. So let's fight back on the racism, and I have a handout for anybody who would like to get involved in that. And if just very briefly, people ask me, oh, you don't like socialism and communism and what Obama did. You must be a Trump supporter. No, I'm not a Trump supporter. I think that Donald Trump, as Ron Paul said, doesn't have a philosophy of governance. I think he's a functionalist. That's good and that's bad. If we had somebody like Ron Paul as president, we'd have a philosophy of governance that would be right for America. With Barack Obama, we had a philosophy of government that was wrong for America. With Donald Trump, he's actually in between. He's a functionalist, he'll do different things that he thinks with, so we can have positive influence on him. And on the back of the sheet, I have a suggestion how we can try having positive influence on the racism issue. So I'll hand that out to everybody afterwards, and I've spoken too long and pass it on.
Hey,
oh, Chris?
Al, I don't know if you noticed, but last week, down in Venezuela, they were breaking into the zoos to steal horses so that they could eat. So when someone says you don't like socialism, you say, no, I just don't like horse meat.
I don't actually. I much prefer squirrel burgers.
Thank you, Al. That was really great. So it's going to be kind of hard to follow that one. But my big idea for me, the issue that I'm most passionate about would be economics. But it's a very broad topic. So I actually am getting my master's in economics right now and want to get a PhD in that afterwards. So for me, I actually see it as a big issue that kind of oversees a lot of things. So it kind of goes back to what Al was saying with the income tax, what Dan was saying for welfare reform, and also Ross, right? Okay. Ross was saying also about our taxes being too high. So for me, I'm very passionate about the fiscal policy, monetary policy, but there's also one more thing that I think people don't always see. And going back to Al's point, is that, especially now in my generation, people think that socialism is this great thing. They were very much into Bernie Sanders, and I mean Bernie Sanders somehow thinks that Denmark and all the Danish countries are socialist, which they are not, and they always say that they aren't. They are very pro-capitalist with a very large welfare state. So my goal is to really change the whole perception of laissez-faire capitalism, one, and two, to show socialism for what it really is. And it is, I hate to use this word, but it is evil. It is slavery. If you want to have a free society, you have to have the only form of economic system that we can have that is compatible with freedom is just pure capitalism, and not mixed, because right now we have mixed. People always think that we have capitalism here in the US. It is by far, I would call it more crony socialism. We have way too much involvement with the Fed. We no longer have a gold standard, and our taxes obviously have gone up from 35 to 39.6% on the corporate side, and our income tax has been horrible. So for me, I just want to get that out there, both on the philosophical side that it is only a system that can provide freedom, and more on the economical side of showing how that is also superior.
So libertarians really only have two issues. One of them is the non-aggression principle. I'm going to skip it. The second one is self-ownership. Because self-ownership comes back to everything that these guys have talked about. You own yourself. If you don't think you do, you're implying that somebody else can own you. And we fought a war about that. Nobody else can own you. And if they can't own you, they can't own the byproduct of your labor. Nobody has a right to the money that you've earned before you. So when Al talks about getting rid of the income tax, 100% yes, I'm behind that. Because you own yourself. You own the product of your labor. When Al talks about compelled labor, the idea that there could be a draft, no, you own yourself. When libertarians say that, you might think libertarians are in favor of cannabis, we're not actually in favor of marijuana. We're in favor of the idea that you own yourself. If you want to smoke and you're not going to hurt anybody, we don't care. You own yourself. And that's something that you can advocate for very simply, because almost everybody would agree with that basic premise. So if you go out there and you talk about the idea, do you own yourself? Everybody would say yes. You say, if you own yourself, how does the government have first right to get money out of your paycheck? Do you own yourself? Should you own yourself? So my issue is self-ownership.
As the state coordinator for the Campaign for Liberty, there is one issue, it's liberty. Just what we've all talked about up here. And to be a little more specific, there's three major tenets we look at Campaign for Liberty. The first is audit the Fed, the Federal Reserve Bank. I can't remember, they did a partial audit, but they found something like $2 trillion were loaned to foreign banks from the Federal Reserve. That's not right. That's our money, our faith, our trust. We need a full audit of the Federal Reserve to find out what's going on with the numbers. And then the second one is end the wars. We've been in Afghanistan for a generation. And what are we really accomplishing? I thought they got Osama bin Laden. Let's bring the troops home. Let's not waste money over there. Let's invest it in America. And finally, protecting internet freedom and privacy. We need the ability to assemble, communicate, and there are groups out there, the Federal Election Commission, that are trying to control our speech on blogs and stuff like that, and net neutrality. We need to avoid that, let the free market decide, and we need to be able to communicate freely, protect our internet freedom. So those are the three things. And I'm going to add a fourth bonus one because Chris Pinto's in the back there. He runs Mass Association for Gun Rights. And as he would tell you, without the Second Amendment, there's nothing else.
You don't have the gun rights, you don't have any rights.
Amen, Chris.
All right, I just want to take a quick moment here and just make sure, before we go too far, has everybody who wanted a ticket for the door prize gotten a ticket for the door prize? I just want to make sure that I haven't let down in my...
Came in late.
Well, Chris, no. All right.
My punishment for being late, I guess.